Humans have always looked into the night sky and dreamed about space. During the time that has passed since the launching of the first artificial satellite in 1957, astronauts have traveled to the moon, probes have explored the solar system, and instruments in space have discovered thousands of planets around other stars. Modern space exploration is reaching areas once only dreamed about. Mars is the focal point of modern space exploration, and manned Mars exploration by NASA and SpaceX is a long-term goal of the United States. The space economy is growing and evolving, together with the development and profound transformation of the space sector and further integration of space into society and economy. Today, with the help of blockchain technologies, the deployed space infrastructure makes the development of new services possible, which enables new applications in various sectors. However, it requires a self-sufficient ecosystem that includes capital, strategic partnerships, and evolving business models. We've taken on to find out how it may develop in the coming years and how the digital space economy can be unlocked. Eva Blaisdell, Lady Rocket, third-generation space CEO entrepreneur, space philanthropist, founder of Copernic Space, California Space Center, and Lady Rocket Foundation. Daughter of Dr. Tadeusz Gajewski, president of Polish Air Force University, co-founder of Military Technology University, instrumental in creating Polish cosmonaut program. Eva Blaisdell participated in over 15 SpaceX and ULA launches at Vandenberg Space Camp, California, and Cape Canaveral. We'll share about her media meeting with Elon Musk, NASA SpaceX astronauts, and how she is bringing American space to Europe. Creator of the first space art NFT philanthropy campaign aiming to fundraise millions to save rhinos using her satellites. And this is what this block says.
Good morning from Los Angeles. I will just give you 30-second version of the introduction because we were not recording previously, correct? So welcome to Lady Rocket Foundation headquarters, also Copernic Space. As CEO Grant Blaisdell, I believe you interviewed him, and welcome to beautiful sunny Los Angeles on July 5th. We are still celebrating our special National Independence Day, so very good day. And very briefly, as I was sharing with you, as a Lady Rocket, I am always authentically present and active in the area that are truly relevant to space. So about a mile from here, I'm about a mile from the former factory of Apollo 11 Saturn V engine. Right now it doesn't exist, unfortunately, but I am making a bid to acquire land left after Apollo 11 factory to create Lady Rocket and California Space Center for space innovation, entertainment, media, and so people like you and everybody else have your place to come to California. And about 10 kilometers from here, former test site for Apollo engine is here. This is why I selected it as one of my locations to be surrounded by legacy of American space program while building its future. So thank you for inviting me to speak with you and with your audience.
Thank you for coming to our interview. My first question will be the following. The world knows you as Eva Blaisdell, but it also knows you as Lady Rocket. So what is the story of Lady Rocket? How did you come up with this, may I call it a nickname?
Well, it's more than nickname. It's already, since we are in America, it's a so-called brand asset. Nickname is of no consequence. It's for usage by friends and family. Lady Rocket is a very inspiring and expanding brand that Hollywood investors are investing in, not necessarily as a space investment, but an investment in my image, in my action, in my authenticity, and my look and fashion, because it's always part of the identity here in America. You have to have your special looks. Today, I am not dressed up as much as I'm normally dressed because it's very early in the morning and I just finished my daily astronaut training in the swimming pool that I should have also. I hope you can see it. In the front of my offices is a very long swimming pool designed for my training, part of the astronaut training. So to answer your question, it is a brand. And what does it mean? It means that I have ventures and companies that are working on developing strategy and market entry for my products, for my NFTs, which are already happening, for my philanthropy. And I'm working with Hollywood and Hollywood producers and screenwriters on preparing Lady Rocket streaming show that is already being pre-introduced to people like Amazon, Apple, and others. So especially for Ukrainian audience, I want to send a message that there are many of you who represent a very unique qualities as people, including you, our lovely host, that are brands in making. So especially with social media, you should look at yourself as a potential brand. The reason that I am doing it is also because my foundation, Lady Rocket Foundation, has incredibly active programs that no one else is funding or creating. And Lady Rocket name came from two sources. Number one, American youth from Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, and Lompoc, California, which is next to a famous Vandenberg Space Base, where we launch rockets here in California. They started to call me Lady Rocket because it was so inconvenient to call me Eva Blaisdell because I was doing so many unusual things. And I don't know what was first. Was it them or was it my husband and my Hollywood friends? But somehow it came together about the same time. And then people who are here in California professionally engaged in creation of brand, they said, my God, this is the greatest name. Why don't you just be a Lady Rocket? So Eva Blaisdell continues on, but this is the part of my identity that is dedicated to corporate investments, cultivation of my legacy, because I was a very accomplished Silicon Valley executive, and in Poland, in 1990s, I was a CEO of the biggest computer company in the world in PCs, compact computers. So I have a big legacy in Poland as Eva Blaisdell. But for space, it's Lady Rocket. So thank you for this good question.
So you moved to America from Poland, right?
Yes, and I wouldn't call it move. I would call it escape.
Escape?
It was probably before the time you were born. And thank God you don't have those restrictions. But I was a graduate student in Warsaw, Poland, who won a very prestigious scholarship to the United States. And my university president and Polish government wouldn't let me leave, wouldn't issue a passport. You know, those were the realities that we lived in, okay? So I found a very clever and legal way to find a way to leave Poland anyway, but I couldn't apply for American visa in Poland because of the problems that I shared with you. So I managed to go to Roma, Italy, and this is a good story for 4th of July weekend. And I arrived to American embassy in Italy, in Roma. I asked for American ambassador, and I introduced myself as Eva Blaisdell, a graduate student from Warsaw, Poland. I showed him my scholarship documents and stated that my government doesn't let me to go to the United States, but I am asking him to make it possible. And he was deeply reluctant because he said he doesn't want my situation to become a conflict between the United States and Poland or cause some problems. So he is, very impressed with my courage and ambition, but he has to decline. Mm-hmm. And this is the time when Declaration of Independence, and again, you and I are speaking during July 4th weekend, came in handy, and the fact that I could quote it. Mm-hmm. So I said, how about American Declaration of Independence, which includes famous words, in pursuit of the happiness? And well, he couldn't find a good answer to that. And I had American visa in 2 weeks. So this was how I, maybe escape is too dramatic, but remember, I live also in Hollywood. So we always try to make a story into something that has a film potential because this is how we live here. So this was my story. And I am so delighted that world has changed and that people like you hopefully can travel to the States someday, to Los Angeles, to Lady Rocket, without this type of challenges that I had to face.
Such an interesting story. And how long have you already been living in the US?
Well, I am going to date myself, but it's not age, but look, energy, and what you do that matters. I arrived in the United States in 1976. I got my degree in 1978. You know why so quickly? Because American University was very impressed with history and legacy of University of Warsaw and quality of education that we get in Europe. So they accepted most of my credits. And so I graduated in 1978, and I asked my esteemed American friends, what should I do with my degree? What's the newest? What's the most spectacular? And they said, you know what, computer industry is happening. So why don't you try to get a job in computer industry? Not only I got the job, but I got probably one of the best jobs because I was hired immediately by Hewlett-Packard and made in charge of Boeing Space, Aerospace, and Boeing Commercial. Can you imagine it?
Wow.
2 years out of Poland. And let me tell you why it happened, because this is also a message to your audience. How could I compete with, I think they were interviewing like 500 candidates. And I was totally surprised that I got the job. And there was one key criteria that was used. And the reason I got the job.
Which
the executive said that I demonstrated the biggest courage. Mm-hmm. And then they said, we know Polish history from the Second World War II, Polish Navy, Polish Air Force. And if you have hundreds of what those Polish officers had, we hired the best person for the job. Because they said, we can teach you everything about computers. We can make your English language better. We can teach you American business. We can teach you public speaking, but no one can teach you courage. So that's something that Polish and Ukrainian people have in common, our courage.
Right. And what were your goals when you moved? And what are your goals now?
Well, I am at the peak of my life, and I have to reach for the stars. So after spending a lot of very successful years and making a lot of money in Silicon Valley, I went back to help build New Poland in 1990s with a major capital investment to help Poland. And I agreed to run the biggest American computer company at that time with massive capacity to invest and to sponsor Polish art, Polish films, Polish sport. I sponsor Polish Olympic team, women Polish Olympic team. I launched the Polish tennis tournament. So I'm talking about it is because to be just a business person or just to focus on the business in contemporary times is not enough. So I have invented ability to, well, I have space startups and space real estate development companies. And I pursue business goals. At the same time, I'm reinventing a definition or how to conduct business when we have corona, when we have a climate change, where we have disappearance of the wildlife. And this is why my every endeavor, because of my innovation, not only technology, but the business model, carries the component of a generous philanthropy, not done old-fashioned Bill Gates way, when you sit for 60 years on billions and then start disposing it for a period of 20 years selectively. And you ask me about NFTs. So probably I am one of the first people who, through my authentic involvement in the space industry, knowledge, position, resources, and understanding of the opportunities, created first NFTs with space art, but aimed at the philanthropic causes relevant to space and relevant to the climate change. And together with Grant Blaisdell, who is my son, and who is an incredibly accomplished young man. By the way, he was born here in California, but when I was in Poland in the 1990s, I brought Grant with me, so he speaks fluent Polish. He loves Poland, and he is a very unique person who is American, but with a big Polish heart. And we are both very appreciative of the talents of Ukrainian people. And as a matter of fact, our blockchain and NFT technology is being developed by phenomenal Ukrainian technologists. So my goals now, I think, represent the needs and ambitions and urgencies of what's happening to us, around us, and above us. And to facilitate it, I started Lady Rocket Foundation, and you can go and take a look at ladyrocketfoundation.org. And this is not ladyrocketfoundation.org, and this is not a static web page. It's actually life-changing every day, reflecting my everyday activities to do what? To make space democratic. What does it mean? It means that you don't have to be a billionaire. You don't have to be Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos to find a way to own part of space. And this is why Copernic Space. Two, in the United States, we have a big segment of American society, especially Mexican, Hispanic, and Black children, who are not necessarily surrounded by resources or a tradition of being comfortable with science, and they don't see themselves as a participant in space economy. I want to change that because I believe that everybody should have an opportunity to be active or participatory, or at least have a chance to be relevant to space. And by space, I mean not to go in space as an astronaut necessarily, or even scientist. It means space media, it means space fashion, space art, because space economy is going to be the biggest economy coming to humanity, and it's still wide open. Google doesn't own it, Facebook doesn't own it, Amazon doesn't own it. It's wide open to us people. So one of the goals is to grow my startups to be what everybody else in America wants to create, $1 trillion companies, okay, in space. This is just American way of thinking. So big, financially empowering with new technology. But the second very important is, and I do it every day, find a way to bring to impact, sometimes even shock, your belief in how you can own and be part of the space economy on Earth, and how we can use space to help Earth. And those are not just the words, because I do not just talk or give the interview and talk about beautiful ideas. I take action. Some of those projects are very challenging. Some of them do not happen. Some of them take longer time than I planned, but I have a staying power to persevere. So, for example, my goal is a successful launch of satellite company that will have humanitarian applications. And this is something new because satellites are not positioned to be humanitarian. So my satellites are going to help us track wounded animals in South Africa because rhinos and elephants are under siege by poachers and hunters. And when we prove the technology, it's going to help us locate indigenous people who, because of the climate change, have to abandon their areas and they are not exactly carrying iPhones around them. So sometimes we don't know what's happening with entire villages. And it's not only in Africa, the same is happening in Brazil, Amazon rainforest. And to do that and to fundraise in a very interesting way, I issued, together with Grant, a first series of NFTs, but I will stop here and maybe you want to ask me some specific questions about that.
We'll get back to NFTs a bit later. And now I want to ask you about your dad, Dr. Tadeusz Gajewski. He was instrumental in creating Polish cosmonaut program, president of Polish Air Force University and co-founder of Military Technology University. Also, Congressman Kevin McCarthy called him the fastest man in the world. So tell me more about your dad. Was it he who instilled the love for space in you?
Yes, definitely. And my mother. But let me, and thank you for acknowledging and saying so nicely about my dad. And indeed, my father was a scientist, educator, professor, co-founder of the Polish Military Academy in Warsaw, and later a president of Polish Air Force Academy in Dęblin, where he was instrumental in creating a Polish cosmonaut program that collaborated with Soviet program, which gave Gagarin and Komarov and Tereshkova. And my father was a scientist, not involved in politics, and his knowledge, courage, vision were instrumental in building Polish or starting a Polish legacy of the astronaut and space. His work was even translated by NASA into English. And I'm talking about 1960s, 1970s, and remains in the library of NASA. So, of course, it was easier for me to feel comfortable with setting ambitious goals for space. And going back to your previous questions, one of my key goals is to relaunch Polish astronaut program, now with Americans. And this is in remembrance of my father, who always told me, Ewuniu, Jewoczka, Ewuniu, I will believe that one day American pilots and American Air Force will be in Poland as a free country, and we will work together on the space program. And this is what my father told me in early 1970s. Mm-hmm. So I feel obligated, especially with my son Grant, to carry his legacy and help Poland launch its astronaut program, which doesn't exist right now. So my son Grant and I are taking steps to make it a reality as both Americans, but also Polish. And my mother was technology translator, one of the very few women involved in technology, and she was also educator, teacher, but she was translating laser technology documents from English and German into Polish for Polish military academy again, it was 1950s, 1960s. And she was an incredible woman ahead of her time in also reaching for the stars.
Thank you, Eva. And do you have any space story?
Do I have any space stories? A lot.
And which one is the most interesting? Or several?
Hundreds. Well, maybe for your audience, let me think. Maybe let's talk about my participation in the SpaceX rocket launch.
Wow, yes, let's do that. Before the interview, you told me that you took part in 15 SpaceX and ULA launches.
Yes. And if I counted correctly, I think it's more, but that's the fact. But the important is, what do I do with my participation? Because, people go and watch the rocket and then they leave and there is no consequence, no results, no meaningful follow-up. It was just, a magical experience. So maybe one of the stories is as follows. On May 5th, 2018, I was invited as a special guest for an ultra special rocket launch. I was going to talk about SpaceX, but let me tell you about the launch of United Launch Alliance, which so far is the only rocket capable of reaching Mars. United Launch Alliance and its CEO, Tore Bruno, which is a space friend of mine, are not as recognizable as Elon Musk because they represent a big American corporation, so they cannot give interviews or tweet, whatever they want to, like Elon, who pretty much runs his own company. But the rockets are fabulous. So I transformed launch of the Mars rocket from Vandenberg Air Force Base here in California. At that time was Air Force Base. Right now it's a space base. So this is the first American space base is here where I'm developing California Space Center. And I took my invitation. I just didn't use it for my personal, connectivity, networking, being there. I created incredible events for young kids in Lompoc, for students from Los Angeles, and for artists and for celebrities to come and participate in this event, while at the same time celebrating young kids of Lompoc as young artists, performers, fashion designers, because this is when Lady Rocket Foundation was created. And this was the way that I wanted to use rocket launch, which is normally very serious, very traditional, conservative event, into something that can inspire and bring joy to young generation in the way that they can carry on. So out of it, not only we celebrated incredible rocket launch, and you know what? When you go to the rocket launch anywhere, you never know if the rocket is going to take off, what time. There is frequently rescheduling. So our Mars rocket launch was supposed to, I believe, take off like 8 p.m. It ultimately took off at 4 a.m. So as a Lady Rocket, and as a Lady Rocket Foundation, we created an incredible new innovative way to spend the time if rocket launch is delayed. So we had the music, we had dances, we had fashion show, and I have beautiful pictures from it. So the reason that I love this story is because it shows that there is an opportunity to take advantage of a free event like watching a rocket launch and transform it into something that can change community. If you look at the rocket launch not only as a scientific and business event, but also something that can impact humanity. So this was also the reason why I funded and I carry on with Lady Rocket Foundation, which is very active in Poland, in Lithuania, in Croatia, of course, here in the United States. And I'll be very happy to identify people in Ukraine that we could bring some of those activities to you and bring resources. And my Lady Rocket Foundation is approved by American State Department, which means local American embassies in the countries like Ukraine, Poland, anywhere in the world. I have a clearance and prove the quality so they can finance my activities in a particular country.
Eva, and what do you feel when the rocket takes off to the boundless space?
It is a magical moment. I would say I must identify with the engineers and management and people like Elon Musk, because I know by being also as a media, because I have my media company, which gives me additional closer access to the rocket launch, I know how difficult decision process they have to make before rocket takes off, or most importantly, when they have to cancel the rocket launch. But the ultimate feelings that I can share with you were, number one, when Grant and I met with Elon Musk and Jim Brandenstein, who was in charge of NASA, and two first astronauts that were selected to fly on the first SpaceX Dragon 2 capsule into space. So it was the first time American astronauts would fly on American rockets. Huge risk. And I was with Elon Musk when he was introducing astronauts, Doug Hurley and Bob Beacon, two astronauts. And I could authentically see almost sweat on Elon Musk's forehead when we, the media, asked him, how does he feel about having responsibility for the life of two astronauts, flying them on unproved yet at that time SpaceX. And then I was at Cape Canaveral when they were lifting off. And my thoughts were with Elon Musk, with Jim Brandenstein, and of course with astronauts. Beyond being able to appreciate, but being respectful and aware of incredible sense of responsibility that they had in making a decision, liftoff or not, because the liftoff was also delayed a little bit. So, and then of course, majestic launch of the rocket is so beautiful, especially here in California, because the rocket is launching in the front of the beautiful California mountains on the beach of Pacific Ocean. So visually, it is majestic. And this is why Lady Rocket Media is filming the program about it, because no one is showing it from the standpoint, okay, there's a rocket launch, but there's so much more going on. And this is why I am now building a special dome to provide rocket launch as an NFT event, as an artistic event, as a music event, not only scientific event. My God, I've noticed I am giving you all those long answers, but I guess I want to give you and your audience hopefully some, insight that is, I know it's normally not shared.
Yes, you do share some authentic, unique, and new information, and I really appreciate your honesty. You just told me that you had a meeting with Elon Musk. What did you talk about? Will you be among the first Mars colonists?
Well, I have my ambition are to make sure that they happen, number one. Number two, be very contributory to Elon Musk's mission. And will I be flying to Mars? I am putting it on my agenda, but I am holding myself accountable for delivering to the mission, Elon mission that Musk, represents something very specific and very important. And also relevant to our interview, and you will be the first one to hear about it. I will be announcing it in about 2 weeks, but I'm happy to share it with your Ukrainian audience. Going back to your question, what we talked about, and Grant was with me, and the reason that I could ask any question is because as a Lady Rocket, I am accredited with Elon Musk, meaning I am recognized as the media that he wants to invite at the moments of importance. Mm-hmm. So I was there as a space entrepreneur, I was there as Lady Rocket, I was there as a space investor, and I was there as media, because to be just one person doesn't make it anymore. You have to carry more than one hat. And we asked a question that, and the answer would give answer to your two questions about Mars and what I talked about with Elon Musk. And I wanted Grant to ask this key question, and we have it on the video actually. And it was a long discussion. We talked with him and Jim Brandenstein for several minutes. So I will just give you a summary result. Okay. We introduced Copernic Space as a way to unleash incredible new funding for space economy, including SpaceX rockets. In return for Elon Musk agreeing to provide for free IP to his rockets. It's not only SpaceX Falcon Heavy, but also his Mars generation of rockets. And the answer was positive. He would do it in collaboration with NASA. So this is great stuff. And we have not been making it public, although part of the video is on Grant Blaisdell's Twitter, and I should put it on mine. And I guess I will, until we got Copernic Space and Lady Rocket Foundation to the point where we can take the next step. Why is it relevant to funding his rockets? Because IP will give us an opportunity to fundraise, so you could become co-owner of the SpaceX rocket going to Mars. So just like if you go on the Copernic Space website, you will see magical statements that kind of speaks about it. And so what I want to do, and my way of getting to Mars, and by the way, I'm very, very, very active in Mars activities. I am following very closely NASA JPL, which is only about 20 miles from here. I participate in every and all of their events. If I cannot be inside, I am reporting from outside, and I am preparing, and I'm in touch with NASA JPL people on a regular basis. So using Copernic Space will be able to finance, if it goes through as we plan, potentially something that I would love to see, creation of the Polish, Czech, Hungarian, Ukrainian rocket. It's a tri-sea countries. So we too can have a rocket, because country without a rocket abdicates its participation in the most important part of the human endeavor. So stay in touch. We'll be taking steps in about 2 weeks. But anyway, that's how I want to be on Mars. I want to help finance one of the rockets going to Mars. And it's possible because of cryptocurrency, because of Copernic Space, because of NFTs.
Mm-hmm. Eva, do you and Copernic Space collaborate with NASA? Because I've seen NASA mentions Copernic Space on their website.
Not only collaborates, we are the only financial startup that is accepted by NASA as a financial platform. So watch us moving billions of dollars worth with NASA IP to Copernic Space platform. And this morning, I was in touch with manager and PhD with NASA JPL, who said, my God, we need to find funding for our project. We don't know how to do it. Comes Copernic Space.
Mm-hmm. I see. And how do you want to unite the space sector and the space art market?
Well, I think that they have to be brought together. And if you look at the space industry, I believe I am, do you still see me?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good, because I am moving a little bit closer to my astronaut space pool. So you can see how sweet it is. So here is, I believe that ultimately art is a very, very critical part of our entire space program, because art is ultimately the expression of humanity. And I am making every effort to make sure that when I will be deciding what goes into space, to Moon, to Mars, or to asteroids, there is an authentic participation of art in it. In the meantime, I have created, sponsored, and produced the only art events during the SpaceX rocket launch, which means I had my collections and collections of Polish painters displayed in the front of the SpaceX before and during its launch, of course, in the safe distance. And it wasn't like next to it. It was, you have to be a few miles away. But I created this first symbolic art exhibit during the SpaceX rocket launch. And now I am very proud of what Grant and I did, which is a creation of the first ever space art NFT exhibition in Palm Springs on the day of returning of SpaceX astronauts to Earth. We took it to Florida because they were landing in Florida, followed by the similar event in Miami, followed by the event in Los Angeles, and followed by creating, based on my concept, first ever space art philanthropic NFTs called Satellite Rhino, where I work with incredible organization, South Africa, Saving the Survivors, where Dr. Johan, whom I mentioned, I believe at the beginning, a famous veterinarian, dashes to save lives of poached. Poached means mutilated rhinos. As you know, hunters and poachers cut off rhinos' horns because rhinos' horns are very available, leaving animals suffering and dying. So the relevance to space and Lady Rocket and Copernic Space is because Dr. Johan, when I asked him what would he need the most, is he said that he would love to have access to the satellite so he can find location of the dying animal faster, so he can get there faster, because normally he has to, drive around and look for the animal, and sometimes he cannot find it. So this is how my Rhino satellites NFTs were created. And we launched it during the Bitcoin 2021 conference. And we will be relaunching it on my new Lady Rocket NFTs space gallery in a couple of weeks. I believe that NFTs is a cryptocurrency of philanthropy, a cryptocurrency of space. And I believe between Copernic Space and Lady Rocket Foundation, our artists, and I want to welcome also artists from Ukraine who'd like to propose their art. And by being space art, it doesn't mean that it has to have a rocket or astronauts or a moon or a Mars. Sometimes it's enough that intention of the painting is sending a humanitarian message about what? About us humans being better on planet Earth before we go to Mars.
How do you choose artists to collaborate with?
Well, I like to support women artists because, as a rule, women's art is priced at 50% less of what men's art is valued. Two, I like to see that she, through her life or identity, resonates with me, with Lady Rocket somehow, which means she perseveres. She chose difficult paths, and that she has capacity to dream big. Because if I launched her in the United States, it's already doing something that most of the artists have no way of accomplishing from countries like Poland or the United States, being introduced to American marketplace. Yes, I like when they find a way to conceptualize something about Lady Rocket mission in their paintings, because it makes it more attractive to my followers, to the corporations who love what I do. So if there is a Lady Rocket element, and I have artists who created my paintings very, very sometimes humorous, sometimes very serious way, it helps both of us, because I still need to promote Lady Rocket brand in a space philanthropy. But if we are there together, he or she will get attention faster from my corporate sponsors. But otherwise, courage and a vision, and of course, art is in the eye of beholder. So I'm not saying that she needs to be, proven perfect artist, but I have to see something. So maybe, through you can help me select some of the Ukrainian artists, especially.
Sure.
Yes, I think this will be beautiful follow-up, because I don't like to give interviews just to give interviews and nothing happens. I think both you and I have incredible opportunity to kickstart Lady Rocket Foundation initiative to invite women and men from Ukraine, artists, but can be also musician, can be fashion designer, okay?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And all of it can be captured in NFTs. I also have a fashion shows. So let's see, and especially from city of Kharkov, which is a beautiful, historical, accomplished city, not necessarily on the front pages as it deserves. And then last but not least, contribution of Ukrainian engineers in creation of the space program. And Ukraine has an incredible contribution to creation of the space program. So we can recognize it too.
Mm-hmm. Eva, do you get help from gallerists?
Well, I help them. I accept, like, for example, our first space art exhibit, we hosted in the most prominent art gallery in Palm Beach. And by the way, Palm Beach is like Monte Carlo of the United States, ultra wealthy. This is where Donald Trump lives now. So I went to and the biggest art collectors live there. So it is not, I need their help. They need my help, because traditional business model of gallery is going out of style, out of business. But I am respectful of the knowledge that they have, but I don't have a time to educate them or save their business. So if they come to me, I will welcome them, but I do not go to them, with an exception when there is, something that connects us. So the Palm Beach gallery called Palm Beach Art Design and Palm Beach Art, Antiques and Design Center, the biggest art gallery in the area. They approached me, or we did it kind of concurrently. They organized incredible events. I selected artists with them. Two of them were Polish. I sponsored Polish artists. And we had the event where the actual physical art was displayed with the big screens showing NFTs. It was fabulous, fabulous. And Grant was there. He flew in specially from Warsaw to Miami for that. So it was spectacular.
Have you already sold some NFTs?
We have auctions. They are still pending. We priced art that normally would sell for $10,000 or $1,000 at the $100,000 level. So we are increasing value of art because of its philanthropic purpose. So you're not only buying art, but you are also getting a part of a satellite and building a rhino hospital. So the auctions are still pending. And we'll be closing it when we'll move it to my art gallery, which is prominent. Right now we have it on the galleries of artists. It doesn't work because I have a bigger pool than artists. And I announced my art gallery during the Apple opening of Creativity Center here in Los Angeles. So I'm collaborating with Apple. Okay, so maybe a last question, if it's okay.
Yes, sure. You're a media personality and you know many people who are at the head of famous corporations. Yesterday you sent me your common photo with Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. How did you guys meet? Do you have some common business?
Yes. You know what? It's impossible to meet Tim Cook. So I love your question. And I think you will like the answer. I wanted to, well, he was on my meet this incredible man. And, you know, his schedule is such that the most famous celebrities and media people cannot get to him very easily. And here's what happened. I will tell you the truth, because truth is better than fabricated story. And we'll tell you also something about America. So I traveled to Silicon Valley. I was there and I wasn't Lady Rocket yet as big as I am now. I went to Silicon Valley because I was preparing a major bid for California Space Center land. And one day, I am sitting in Palo Alto, which is this very exclusive part of Silicon Valley, at Starbucks very early because I was getting ready for the meetings and internet was bad in my hotel. So I went to Starbucks. And it's like 5:30 a.m. So very few people are there. And I see at the table next to me, there is a guy that looks like Tim Cook. But there is no, the bodyguards, no one. And I said, is it Tim or is it not? So I decided to approach him and I said, hi, Tim. I am Eva Blaisdell and are you a Tim Cook? He said, yes, I am. I said, oh, wow, that's wonderful. It's so nice to meet you. so this is the story. And we've been meeting and I said, listen, I am here in Silicon Valley because I'm both fundraising and also getting partners for development of California Space Center. So I tell him that, and he said, you know what, I love what you are doing. I love your courage and everything. So I want to extend my support for your activities. And then he said, one of the reasons that I am so excited to meet you is because I believe that Polish people are one of the most courageous, intelligent, and not recognized enough for incredible contribution that they made to the history to fight for the freedom of this country. So I am incredibly honored and happy to meet you, also as someone from Poland. Okay,
thank you.
So since Poland and Ukraine have the similar history, and there were times when we were the one country, I am saying it's probably, goes toward Ukrainian people as well. And then I met with him, but that's another story. So 2 weeks ago, I was a special guest at magnificent opening of Apple Creativity Center in a very old theater in Los Angeles that they remodeled. And on Instagram, Lady Rocket Space, there are some pictures. And stay tuned, because I am reconnecting to Tim Cook with a specific asks now about NFT, about Lady Rocket Media, about Copernic Space.